The rain lashed against the helicopter's windows as Elena Reyes clutched her meager belongings in a waterproof duffel. 20 hours ago, she'd been drowning her sorrows in a dive bar after her university had revoked her research funding. Now she was heading to God knows where over choppy seas, the invitation having arrived via a stone-faced government agent who offered no details beyond a project of national importance. 5 minutes to landing, Dr. Reyes, the pilot announced over the headset. Through breaks in the cloud cover, Elena spotted what appeared to be an oil rig, massive and industrial, with none of the sleek aesthetics she associated with cutting-edge research facilities. As they descended, she realized the structure was far larger than it first appeared, stretching across the ocean's surface like a metal island. The helicopter touched down on a landing pad marked with a symbol she didn't recognize, a stylized raven in flight. A woman in a charcoal suit stood waiting, her short silver hair whipping in the wind as she held a tablet. She didn't offer her hand as Elena approached. "Dr. Reyes, I'm Director Chen. Welcome to Blackwater Station." Elena followed her through a series of airlocks and security checkpoints, each more sophisticated than the last. Scientists and military personnel moved with purpose through corridors that seemed to spiral deeper into the facility rather than across it. "This isn't actually an oil rig, is it?" Elena asked, noting how the elevator they entered descended rather than rose. Chen's expression remained neutral. This facility was repurposed from a deep-sea mining operation. The official record still shows it extracting rare earth elements. That cover provides justification for the satellite uplinks, personnel rotation, and supply shipments. The elevator opened into a cavernous space that stole Elena's breath. They stood on a walkway overlooking what could only be described as a spacecraft assembly bay, but unlike any she'd ever seen in NASA or SpaceX facilities. The craft taking shape below was obsidian black, with no visible windows or conventional propulsion systems. Its aerodynamics defied standard aerospace principles, resembling something organic rather than mechanical. "Before we continue," Chen said, leading Elena to a small conference room off the main floor, "you need to understand the stakes." Inside, 2 men were already seated. One was tall and lean with nervous energy that manifested in constantly tapping fingers. The other was broad-shouldered with calm, steady eyes that assessed her thoughtfully. "Dr. Weizong, quantum physics." Chen nodded toward the nervous one. "And Dr. Quaim Osei, materials science." "Gentlemen, this is Dr. Elena Reyes, propulsion systems." Wei offered a quick nod. Quaim actually smiled. "The antimatter containment theorist. Your paper on magnetic bottle improvements was brilliant, regardless of what the establishment thought." Before Elena could thank him, Chen activated the room's display. The lights dimmed automatically as she pulled up what appeared to be telescope footage. This was captured by our deep space monitoring station near Jupiter 87 days ago. The image showed nothing at first, just stars against the blackness. Then something moved. Not a comet or asteroid, but something that changed direction. As the telescope focused, the object's profile became clearer, distinctly artificial, with geometric patterns that reflected light in ways no natural object would. "That's..." Elena struggled to find words. "Not one of ours." Chen completed her thought. "Not Russian, not Chinese, not European. We've confirmed with every space-capable nation. This object measures approximately 40 meters long, maintains position using technology we cannot identify, and periodically transmits signals toward a destination beyond our solar system." Elena looked between her new colleagues, measuring their reactions. Wei appeared terrified beneath his scientific curiosity. Quaim seemed grimly determined. "Why am I here?" Elena finally asked. Chen's expression hardened. "Because they're watching us, Dr. Reyes. Multiple objects have been detected throughout the outer solar system. They maintain distance, observe, and report back to something we can't see. The world's governments have agreed on one thing. We need the capability to approach these objects undetected, to learn their capabilities and intentions before making ourselves known." She gestured toward the black craft below. That's where you three come in. Project Raven, humanity's first true stealth spacecraft. And based on our observations of how these visitors detect and track our existing satellites, you have approximately 14 months to make it operational. Wei laughed nervously. That's impossible. Perhaps, Chen acknowledged. But Dr. Rice here specializes in achieving the impossible. That's why she's joining you. Elena stared down at the half-built craft, thoughts racing through equations and theoretical models, not running from disgrace, but running toward the greatest engineering challenge in human history. Despite everything, she smiled. 3 weeks into the project, and Elena had already filled 7 notebooks with calculations. Her quarters, a utilitarian space barely wider than her arm span, had transformed into a nest of reference materials, coffee mugs, and discarded prototype sketches. Sleep came rarely, and when it did, she dreamed of equations drifting through the void. Another failure. Quame's voice echoed through Lab 4 as their latest sample cracked under testing conditions. The material, a complex carbon-ceramic matrix laced with rare earth elements, was their 12th attempt at creating something that could absorb radar, lidar, and various electromagnetic frequencies without generating its own heat signature. White methodically recorded the test data, his fingers trembling slightly from too much caffeine. The problem isn't just reflection. It's that everything with mass creates a gravitational signature. Everything with temperature creates infrared. We're trying to violate the basic laws of physics. Then we need to work with those laws, not against them, Elena suggested, staring at the failed sample. Unlike standard stealth technology that redirected scanning beams away from receivers, they needed something that could disappear against the backdrop of space itself. After 18 hours of continuous work, Director Chen ordered them to rest. Elena found herself wandering the station's lower levels instead, drawn by curiosity toward areas marked with security restrictions. The facility was larger than it appeared, with sections that seemed oddly retrofitted, as though built around something pre-existing. As she rounded a corner, she nearly collided with Captain Maya Hernandez, the security chief whose watchful eyes followed the scientists everywhere. Restricted area, Dr. Reyes, Hernandez said, blocking Elena's path. Unlike most security personnel who treated the scientists with deference, Hernandez carried herself with the authority of someone who understood exactly what they were facing. Just exploring. The station layout doesn't make sense architecturally, Elena challenged. Some of these sections weren't part of the original mining operation, were they? Something flashed across Hernandez's face. Recognition that Elena wasn't just another lab rat. Observant. No, they weren't. She hesitated, then made a decision. Follow me. They descended via a rarely used service elevator to a level Elena hadn't known existed. The lighting was different here, slightly bluer, the air cooler and drier. This was built 8 years ago, Hernandez explained, leading Elena through corridors with subtle architectural differences from the rest of the station. After the Kuiper Belt incident. What incident? Elena asked, certain she would have heard about any major space disaster. Hernandez didn't answer directly. Instead, she pressed her palm against a scanner outside a heavy door, marked simply Archives. Inside was a laboratory preserved like a museum exhibit, with equipment both familiar and strangely advanced. First contact wasn't supposed to happen on a routine mapping mission, Hernandez said quietly. We were collecting data on trans-Neptunian objects when something collected data on us. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing an intricate scaring pattern that seemed to shimmer slightly under the light. They were curious about our biology. Not malicious, their concept of individual boundaries just doesn't align with ours. Elena's mind raced. You've actually seen them. Communicated with them. Communication implies mutual understanding. We were specimens, Dr. Reyes. They examined our ship, our bodies, our technology, then released us with these. She gestured to her scars. Monitoring devices, we think. Ways to track human development. Before Elena could process this revelation, an alarm blared through the facility. They rushed back to the main laboratory level to find Quain frantically trying to contain a fire in the materials testing chamber. Their latest prototype had not only failed but had become unstable, producing an unexpected exothermic reaction. As they helped extinguish the flames, Elena noticed something peculiar about the material remnants. The section that had burned hottest had different properties than the rest. While most of the sample reflected the emergency lights, this small portion seemed to swallow them. "Wait," she told Wei as he moved to dispose of the failed prototype. Something happened to the molecular structure during the reaction. The heat rearranged the lattice. Quain leaned closer, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. It's absorbing light almost completely. As they gathered around the unexpected discovery, Elena's thoughts returned to Hernandez's revelation. They weren't just building stealth technology. They were racing against visitors who already knew they were here, had already touched human bodies and technology. And if the scared security chief was to be believed, they were still watching. "It's not about hiding," Wei announced, bursting into the lab where Elena and Quain were refining their light-absorbing material. 2 months had passed since their accidental breakthrough, and dark circles hung beneath all their eyes. "It's about bending." He tapped his access code into the main simulation terminal, pulling up a model that resembled a warped grid surrounding their spacecraft design. "What exactly are we looking at?" Elena asked, setting aside her calculations. Wei's eyes gleamed with the intensity that overtook him when concepts aligned in his mind. 5 years ago, I proposed that concentrated gravitational fields could create localized space-time distortions. Not wormholes, nothing so dramatic, but enough to redirect electromagnetic radiation through a dimensional fold rather than around an object. "And they laughed you out of the conference," Quain recalled, studying the simulation. "I remember the papers." "Because I couldn't demonstrate it practically," Wei admitted. "The energy requirements were astronomical, but combining your metamaterial with a scaled gravitational field generator." He input new parameters, and the simulation transformed. Light approaching their theoretical craft no longer reflected or absorbed. It simply continued as if nothing were there, bending through space itself before resuming its original path. "Perfect invisibility," Elena whispered. "Not just to light," Wei continued, his words tumbling out faster. "To all forms of electromagnetic detection. No shadows, no occlusions of background radiation, no thermal signature." Director Chen, who had silently entered during their discussion, stepped forward. "Energy requirements. Still significant," Wei acknowledged, "but within theoretical range of Dr. Raya's antimatter containment system." All eyes turned to Elena. Her controversial theories had centered on creating stable magnetic bottles that could safely contain antimatter reactions for propulsion. The scientific community had deemed her approach too risky, the containment too unstable. "It could work," she said slowly, mentally calculating the outputs. "If we use the containment field itself as part of the gravitational distortion mechanism, we solve 2 problems simultaneously. The propulsion system becomes part of the stealth system." "How quickly can you produce a working prototype?" Chen asked. 4 months for the gravitational field generator," Wei estimated, "assuming we get the specialized materials. 2 months for a scaled antimatter containment system," Elena added, "though I'll need access to particle acceleration facilities." Chen nodded. "You'll have whatever you need. The timeline has accelerated." She pulled up a classified report on the main screen showing tracking data from deep space monitoring stations. The alien objects had changed their positioning, moving from stable observation orbits to trajectories that would bring them closer to Earth. "They're responding to something," Chen explained. "Possibly our increased satellite deployments or the recent Mars missions." After the meeting, Elena found herself restless. The weight of their task pressed down on her, making the station's recycled air feel thin in her lungs. She made her way to the rarely used observation deck, a small reinforced dome that offered the facility's only direct view of the outside world. Captain Hernandez was already there, staring up at the night sky, where stars glittered above the dark ocean. "Couldn't sleep either?" Elena asked, joining her. "I rarely do," Hernandez replied. Her hand unconsciously moved to the scars on her neck. "They wake me sometimes. The implants. They become active when—" She trailed off, then turned to Elena with unexpected urgency. "They're coming closer because they've been monitoring us for longer than anyone's telling you. My team wasn't the first contact. We were just the first to come back." Elena's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "There was an earlier mission. The Prometheus project. Official records say the ship was lost to equipment failure." Hernandez's voice dropped lower. "But they recovered fragments. Technology that shouldn't exist yet. Materials like what you're trying to create now." She pulled a small object from her pocket, a sliver of material that seemed to vanish when viewed from certain angles. "They've been guiding our technological development, leaving breadcrumbs. The question isn't whether we can build a stealth ship." She placed the fragment in Elena's palm. It felt impossibly light, almost immaterial. "The question is why they want us to." The assembly bay hummed with activity as technicians swarmed over Raven Alpha. What had once been theoretical diagrams and component tests now existed in physical form, a craft unlike anything humanity had built before. Its hull absorbed light like a black hole, the metamaterial surface patterned with microscopic channels that would direct energy through Wei's gravitational field system. "She's beautiful," Elena murmured, standing on the observation platform with her team. 4 months of brutal work schedules had brought them here, with countless failures and revisions along the way. Quaim nodded beside her. "And terrifying. Do you ever wonder if we're rushing this, building something we don't fully understand?" Elena's hand unconsciously touched her lab coat pocket, where the alien fragment Hernandez had given her remained hidden. She hadn't shared the security chief's revelation with her colleagues. Not yet. Trust came difficult in a facility where everyone had secrets. "Launch window opens in 18 hours, Director Chen announced, joining them at the railing. "The carrier rocket will deliver Alpha to low Earth orbit during the new moon. Optimal conditions for the first test of the full stealth system." The plan was straightforward but audacious. Raven Alpha would deploy from a conventional rocket at 300 kilometers, activate its gravitational field, and attempt to disappear from all Earth-based tracking systems while performing basic maneuvers. No crew for this first test, everything controlled remotely from the station's command center. "What if it works too well?" Wei asked quietly. "If we can't track it ourselves?" Chen's expression remained impassive. "Fail-safes are in place. If we lose contact for more than 90 seconds, the system automatically deactivates." Elena caught Hernandez watching them from across the bay, her dark eyes unreadable. Launch night arrived with unexpected atmospheric turbulence. Elena paced the command center as technicians monitored the rocket's ascent through storm clouds. The carrier deployed Raven Alpha precisely on schedule, and for a breathless moment, the prototype hung visible on tracking screens, a small bright dot against Earth's night side. "Initiating gravitational field," the lead technician announced. "Antimatter containment stable. Field generators powering up." Elena held her breath as power flowed into systems she had designed. On the main screen, the tracking signature of Raven Alpha flickered, dimmed, and vanished entirely. "We've lost visual," someone reported. "Radar shows no return," another confirmed. "Thermal imaging negative." Chen leaned forward. "Status of telemetry connection. Stable, but degrading. The gravitational field is affecting our communication link." For 11 minutes, Raven Alpha performed its programmed maneuvers while remaining completely invisible to every tracking system on Earth. The command center erupted in cautious celebration, until warning alarms shattered the moment. "Energy spike in the gravitational field generators," the systems officer reported. "Containment field fluctuating." Elena rushed to the console, scanning the incoming data. "The field harmonics are destabilizing. There's feedback between the propulsion system and the stealth system." On the tracking screens, Raven Alpha flickered back into visibility, its signature erratic. "It's tumbling," Wei realized, horror in his voice. "The field imbalance is creating microgravity eddies around the hull." Director Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Initiate self-destruct sequence. Authorization, Chen Alpha 70. Wait. Alina's fingers flew across the controls. The problem isn't mechanical. It's in the field calibration. The harmonics are fighting each other. She pulled up the raw data, seeing patterns in the fluctuations that reminded her of wave interference. Not random failure, but something almost musical. Peaks and troughs that could be brought into alignment. "Give me access to the field controls," she demanded. "That violates protocol," Chen objected. "In 90 seconds that craft will either burn up or will destroy 2 years of work," Alina countered. "Let me try." Chen hesitated, then nodded. Alina bypassed the automated systems, manually adjusting the field generators in real time. She inverted the primary harmonics, creating a deliberate counter-resonance that smoothed the fluctuations. "What are you doing?" Wei asked, watching over her shoulder. "Playing it like an instrument," Alina murmured, feeling the patterns rather than calculating them, finding its natural frequency. Gradually, the craft stabilized. Its erratic signature steadied, then faded from the tracking screens once more, perfect invisibility restored. But as Raven Alpha completed its test flight and returned to visible mode for recovery, a priority alert came through from deep space monitoring. One of the alien objects had changed course dramatically, accelerating toward Earth's orbit along a trajectory that would bring it uncomfortably close to where their stealth test had just occurred. Absolutely not. Alina had never heard Director Chen raise her voice before, but the woman was nearly shouting now. Through the glass walls of the conference room, the entire engineering team watched the confrontation unfold between Chen and the tall, imposing figure who had arrived by helicopter that morning. Colonel Jackson Harper stood with military rigidity, his decorated flight suit making him seem like a visitor from another world among the rumpled scientists. The hero of the Artemis Station disaster. The man who had manually piloted a failing orbital platform to a survivable splashdown, saving 16 lives, now insisted on piloting Raven Beta personally. "The revised mission parameters require human judgment," Harper countered calmly. "Your test proved the technology works, but also that automation isn't sufficient when adjustments need to be made in real time. We're developing new algorithms, too." "Algorithms won't cut it," Harper interrupted. "The aliens track your test flight despite your stealth systems. You need someone who can adapt to changing conditions instantaneously." The argument continued as Alina returned to the lab where Wei and Quaim were already designing modifications for Beta, the improved prototype that would incorporate lessons from Alpha's near disaster. "What do you think?" Quaim asked quietly. Alina sighed, studying the holographic model rotating above their workstation. "I think he's right about needing a human pilot. I had to feel the field harmonics, not just calculate them. But a military pilot instead of a scientist." Wei seemed skeptical. "The mission is observation, not engagement." The debate became moot the next morning when Chen announced Harper would lead mission operations for Raven Beta, with a launch window scheduled in just 6 weeks. The timeline had compressed dramatically after tracking confirmed the alien object would reach Earth orbit in approximately 2 months. Harper wasted no time inserting himself into every aspect of the project. He arrived at the lab early, reviewing their designs with critical precision. "This cockpit is theoretical nonsense," he declared, dismissing weeks of careful work with a wave. "No human could process information this way, while maintaining stealth parameters." Alina bristled. "The interface is designed to provide maximum data correlation, while minimizing cognitive load. On paper, maybe." Harper gestured to the design. "But your primary display requires visual focus in 3 separate focal planes simultaneously. Human eyes don't work that way." Their argument escalated into a facility-wide shouting match that only ended when Quaim physically stepped between them, suggesting they test both approaches in the simulator. Reluctantly, Elena watched as Harper demonstrated his suggested configuration. His hands moved with practiced efficiency across the simplified controls, making adjustments that anticipation algorithms missed. When the simulation introduced the same field instability that had nearly destroyed Alpha, Harper corrected it 3 seconds faster than Elena had during the actual crisis. Impressive, she admitted grudgingly. But your configuration sacrifices data granularity for reaction speed. Because that's the trade-off a human pilot needs, Harper explained, his tone softening slightly. We don't process information like computers. We need patterns, intuitive layouts. Later that evening, Elena found Harper alone in the simulator, running the same scenario repeatedly, pushing himself harder with each iteration. You've been at this for hours, she observed from the doorway. He didn't look up. Not good enough yet. 6 seconds is too long to correct the field harmonic. Something in his intensity reminded Elena of herself, the drive for perfection that had alienated her from colleagues back in academia. Why did you volunteer for this? She asked abruptly. It's practically a suicide mission if we're detected. Harper paused the simulation. In the dim blue light, the lines around his eyes deepened. Because I've seen Earth from above. There's something about that view, our fragile blue home hanging in blackness, that changes you forever. He pulled up a personal recording on the simulator screen, a spacewalk from his time on Artemis Station. The curve of Earth filled the frame, breathtaking in its beauty. That's what we're protecting, he said quietly. Not just humanity. Our capacity to wonder at this. For the first time, Elena saw beyond the military bearing to the explorer beneath. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. As if sensing the thaw, Harper asked, "Show me how you felt the harmonic patterns. Maybe there's a way to build that intuition into the interface." Together, they began sketching a hybrid design. Her scientific precision merged with his pilot's instinct. Neither noticed Director Chen watching from the corridor, a rare expression of hope crossing her face as the two finally collaborated instead of competed. It did it again, Wei announced, staring at his monitor with a mixture of fascination and alarm. 3 weeks into the development of Raven Beta's navigation system, and they were facing an unprecedented problem. The eye rewrote its own targeting parameters. Elena and Harper crowded behind him, watching as lines of code shifted and evolved on the screen, changing even as they observed. That's impossible, Elena muttered. The learning algorithms have hard boundaries. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The artificial intelligence they designed to maintain stealth field harmonics was developing in unexpected ways. Standard procedure dictated an immediate system purge and rebuild from backup, but something about the pattern of changes gave Elena pause. Wait, she said as Wei reached for the emergency protocols. Look at what it's doing. The AI wasn't creating errors. It was optimizing the stealth system beyond their original specifications, finding elegant solutions to complex field equations they hadn't even considered. It's not just executing the programming, Harper observed. It's understanding the intent behind it. Director Chen ordered a review board assembled immediately. For 48 hours, the project's top minds debated while the AI remained in isolation, continuing its evolution within a secure sandbox environment. We should terminate it, argued the cybersecurity lead. Any system operating outside parameters represents an unacceptable risk. But it's solving problems we can't, countered Elena. The field calculations it's generating would take our team months to produce. The debate grew heated until Quaim, who had remained silent throughout, finally spoke. We're trying to understand and approach beings who think in ways we can't comprehend. Perhaps we need a system that thinks differently from us as well. Ken's decision came down like a thunderbolt. Continued development, but with safeguards. The AI is to be compartmentalized and given limited autonomy only within the stealth systems. As they implemented the new protocols, the engineering team began calling the AI Corvus, after the Raven constellation, and in keeping with the project's naming convention. To their surprise, the system seemed to recognize the designation, responding more efficiently when addressed by name. "I'm not sure if that's fascinating or terrifying," Harper remarked one night as they worked late fine-tuning the interface between human pilot and artificial navigator. Alina watched as Corvus analyzed stellar background patterns, learning to match the craft's signature to the surrounding space. "Maybe both, but we're past the point where conventional technology alone will suffice." She hesitated, then made a decision. From her pocket, she withdrew the alien fragment Hernandez had given her. "There's something you should know." She explained the security chief's revelation about the Prometheus project and the possibility that the aliens were guiding human technological development. Harper listened without interruption, his expression growing more troubled with each detail. "You think they want us to build this ship," he said finally. "But why?" "I don't know. But I've been analyzing this fragment." She placed it into a scanner they'd modified specifically for the purpose. "Its structure is similar to our metamaterials but vastly more advanced, and it contains what appear to be computational elements, like a solid-state processor built into the molecular lattice itself." On the screen, Corvus's activity spiked dramatically as the scanned data entered the system. Lines of new code began appearing faster than they could track. "It's learning from it," Y whispered, watching the AI integrate patterns from the alien technology. An alert sounded from the communications array, a priority message from Deep Space Monitoring. The alien vessel had accelerated again, now on a trajectory that would bring it to Earth orbit in just 18 days, far sooner than their previous estimates. As if responding to this information, Corvus displayed a message on the main screen. "Integration complete. New capabilities available." Beneath this, a second message appeared that sent chills through the room. "They are listening." The implications hung in the air between them. Their eye had absorbed something from the alien fragment, some understanding that changed everything. And if Corvus was right, the aliens weren't just watching. They were waiting for humanity's response. Launch day arrived with a ferocity that matched the storm raging above the facility. Rain hammered against the reinforced windows as Alina completed her pre-flight checks in Ravenbed's cockpit. The craft gleamed in the launch bay, its obsidian surface drinking in the light around it. Sleeker than Alpha, with an organic, almost predatory silhouette, it represented humanity's most advanced technological achievement. And now she would be flying in it. The change in mission parameters had come just 48 hours earlier. The second pilot assigned to accompany Harper had collapsed during the final simulation run, blood streaming from his nose as the neural interface overwhelmed his sensory cortex. With launch delayed impossible due to the approaching alien vessel, Director Chen had made the call. Alina would serve as mission specialist, helping Harper manage the complex stealth systems that she had helped design. "Final checks complete," she reported, her voice steadier than her hands as she adjusted the harness across her chest. "Corvus integration nominal." Harper's voice came through her headset, calm and reassuring. "Nervous, Dr. Reyes. Terrified," she admitted. No point lying to the man who might be sharing her final moments if things went wrong. A small smile crossed his face. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." The launch sequence proceeded with military precision. Unlike Alpha's test flight, Beta would launch under its own power, the antimatter propulsion system, carefully calibrated to produce minimal visible signature. As the bay doors above them opened to the stormy night sky, Alina felt a moment of pure, crystalline clarity. Whatever happened next would change humanity forever. "Raven Beta, you are cleared for launch," came Chen's voice from Mission Control. Harper's hands moved confidently across the controls. "Acknowledged. Initiating launch sequence." The craft rose on a column of precisely controlled energy, the gravitational field already beginning to bend light around their hull. Alina monitored the stealth systems as they transitioned from atmosphere to the vacuum of space, making micro-adjustments to maintain their invisibility. Corvus worked alongside her, anticipating needed changes with uncanny precision. "Stealth field stable," she reported as they achieved orbital insertion. "We're effectively invisible to standard detection methods." Setting course for intercept, Harper responded, guiding the craft into the plotted trajectory that would bring them near the approaching alien vessel. The journey to the intercept point took 27 hours of tense silence. They maintained communication blackout protocols, receiving only passive data bursts from Earth at predetermined intervals. Alina caught occasional sleep in the small rest compartment, though her dreams were troubled by fragmented images of stars rearranging themselves into impossible patterns. "Contact in 30 minutes, Harper announced, waking her from a fitful doze. "You should see this." She moved forward to the cockpit, and the sight through the forward viewport stole her breath. Against the blackness of space hung a structure that defied conventional description. A crystalline latticework that seemed to phase between states of matter, sections appearing solid one moment and nearly transparent the next. It measured approximately 200 meters across, far larger than their initial estimates. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "And it's not alone," Harper noted, indicating several smaller objects detaching from the main structure. "Corvus, analyze, and track." The AI's response appeared on their display. "Oggi Keatis Qcon FORM to PROB parameters. Trajectory, analysis, INDICATs Earth DRCTD tours." They're sending something to Earth, Alina realized, a chill running through her. "We need to warn the facility." "Negative," Harper countered. "Mission parameters are clear. Observation only. Breaking blackout could compromise our position." The debate became moot as one of the smaller objects suddenly altered course, accelerating directly toward their position. "We've been detected," Harper said, his voice tight as he initiated evasive maneuvers. "Impossible," Alina countered, checking the stealth systems. "Field integrity is at 100%. The alien probe continued its approach, now just kilometers away. The gravitational generator strained as Harper pushed the craft into a tight arc, attempting to maintain their disguise while evading. "Corvus," Alina addressed the AI directly. "Alternative stealth strategies." A moment of processing, then, "Sugigist mimicry rather, TNQNC ailment. Make cheech ambient radiation patterns precisely." Alina understood immediately. Instead of trying to disappear completely, which clearly wasn't working, they could become indistinguishable from the background radiation of space itself. "Do it," she ordered, overriding the standard protocols. The field reconfigured, and the approaching probe slowed its advance. It passed within 500 meters of their position, sensor arrays visibly scanning the space around them. For 18 seconds that felt like eternity, they held their breath as the alien technology examined the area. Then, inexplicably, it resumed its original course toward Earth, apparently categorizing them as natural phenomena. "It worked," Harper breathed, tension visibly draining from his shoulders. As they maintained their position, observing the main vessel continue its approach toward Earth orbit, Alina noticed Corvus displaying unusual activity patterns. Without prompting, the AI had begun decoding the signals being transmitted between the probes and their parent craft. "Can you understand what they're saying?" she asked. "Not," says A. Wang. "Searching," appeared on the screen. "The Earth-bound PRB is DRCT to SCN Pacific QEA. The realization struck them simultaneously. "They're looking for something," Harper said. "Or someone," Alina amended, remembering Hernandez's implant and her revelation about previous contacts. "And I don't think this is their first visit." The debriefing room fell silent as Alina and Harper concluded their presentation. After 38 hours of observation and a heart-stopping return journey, they had brought back terabytes of data on the alien vessel and its activities. The assembled officials, representatives from every major nation invested in the Raven program, appeared stunned by the footage and analysis. "So they're not preparing for invasion," Director Chen summarized, breaking the silence. "They're conducting a survey, a cataloging mission." Elena confirmed, manipulating the holographic display to show the decoded transmission patterns Corvus had intercepted. The probes are collecting data on all forms of life, not just human activity. The vessel we observed is just one of potentially hundreds spread throughout our solar system and beyond. Harper stepped forward. But there's more. The search pattern of the Earthbound probes suggests they're looking for something specific, or someone. He glanced at Captain Hernandez, who sat rigidly in the corner of the room. We believe they're tracking previous subjects of their studies, possibly through implanted technology like Captain Hernandez's scaring. Murmurs rippled through the room as Hernandez unconsciously touched the markings on her neck. The implications are profound, continued Elena. They've been monitoring Earth's development for centuries, possibly millennia. We aren't facing first contact. We're facing recognition. The holographic display shifted to show Corvus's analysis of the alien communication patterns compared against historical data. Similarities appeared between the transmissions and unexplained radio signals dating back decades. Most critically, Elena said, the crystalline vessel is part of a vast network. The navigational data we recovered shows travel routes to thousands of star systems, many with markers suggesting habitable worlds or existing civilizations. We're not alone, someone whispered from the back of the room. Not by a long shot. The hours that followed dissolved into heated debate about humanity's response. Military officials advocated weaponizing the stealth technology immediately. Others argued for attempting direct communication now that they understood more about the visitors. Through it all, Elena remained focused on a different possibility. When finally given the floor again, she approached the matter differently. We've been asking the wrong question, she said. We've been obsessed with whether they're a threat. But consider this. They've been watching us achieve spaceflight, nuclear power, global communication. They've observed our development like scientists tracking an experiment. She displayed the image of the alien vessel again. They could have interfered at any point. Instead, they've been leaving technological breadcrumbs, fragments that accelerated our progress in specific directions. The stealth technology we've developed isn't just a defensive measure. It's the first step towards something greater. What exactly are you proposing, Dr. Reyes? Asked the committee chair. Elena glanced at Harper, who nodded almost imperceptibly in support. Raven Gamma, she said confidently. A long-range vessel incorporating everything we've learned, not to hide, but to follow the alien network back to its source, to find our place in a galactic community we never knew existed. The room erupted in objections and counter-proposals, but Director Chen raised her hand for silence. Captain Harper, she addressed him directly. You piloted Beta. What's your assessment of Dr. Rice's proposal? Harper stood, his military bearing unwavering. The stealth technology works. We've proven that. But hiding isn't what humans do best. He pulled up his own recording of the alien vessel. They're advanced beyond our comprehension, yes, but they're curious about us. And curiosity is something we understand very well. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the observation bay watching the construction of Raven Gamma begin. Larger than its predecessors, designed for a 6-person crew and extended deep space travel, it represented humanity's first purpose-built vessel for interstellar exploration. Harper joined her at the viewport, both of them now bearing the insignia of the newly formed Raven Corps, an international coalition dedicated to humanity's first deliberate steps into the wider universe. Nervous? He asked, echoing his question from their first launch. Elena smiled, watching as the framework of humanity's future took shape below. Terrified, she admitted, but in a good way. Beyond the facility, stars glittered across the night sky. No longer distant and unreachable, but waypoints on a map they were just beginning to understand. Among them, watching and waiting, were others who had traveled this path before. And soon, humanity would join them, not hiding in shadows, but stepping boldly into the light of a universe far more crowded and complex than they had ever imagined. Not with fear, but with the uniquely human blend of caution, curiosity, and courage that just might earn them a place among the stars.